Let's go live. Make sure that's good to go. I'm showing green. Welcome everybody. Hopefully you guys can hear and see me fine. No duplicate sounds or anything like that. Looks like I got one audio source, so we're good to go. So welcome. So I'm going to get right into it, and then folks can always come back to this and rewind, because in YouTube you don't have to play it live. So pretty big day when it comes to actual decision making, something that we haven't got a lot of, especially recently when it comes to like hard forks and making decisions on, I would say, kind of quasi controversial topics. We've been looking for this decision, go, no go, for probably the past year, at least with Ethereum. Anybody that's been doing GPU mining, this has been a hot topic for quite a while. And I think today we finally got at least a direction that they can go with. And I want to go through that, at least from the call, for the people that weren't able to listen to the development call or just want the kind of highlights. We're going to get right into getting into the highlights of it. So essentially, the Ethereum development team has a call about every 2 weeks. They talk about when and where they're going to have updates, such as EIPs, their Ethereum improvement plans. Most of the time it has something to do with, a fix of a client like Geth or parity, lots of other smart contract types of fixes. But in this particular meeting today, at about the 48-minute mark, I have links down below to the video itself. There was a discussion about Prog proof of work. And anybody that has not been following Prog proof of work or any of that kind of content in general, the Ethereum algorithm that's used when you're doing proof of work mining right now is Etash. It's been that way since the beginning, September of 2015. It's essentially what I would say rekindled the GPU mining scene. And a lot of the folks that got into mining on the cryptocurrency mining side was really driven by the Ethereum movement, essentially. So what's happened in the last 6 months is that there's been announcements after announcements when it comes to ASICs. So I believe it's the E3, which is the Bitcoin ASIC. It came out. It doesn't, or the Ethereum ASIC. It has about a 2x, almost a 2x advantage. Actually, about 1.5x advantage when it comes to speed versus power compared to a traditional GPU. And there's some newer ones coming out that actually, or at least have been announced, that are about a 2x, almost 3x speed advantage. But a lot less power. And what was discussed in this meeting today was essentially the proliferation of that and the arms race that goes on with ASICs once an algorithm's been proverbially cracked. Not to mention the FPGAs, which are programmable pieces of hardware that essentially you're using software to manipulate an ASIC or a programmable gate array is what it comes down to. But it's a daughter hardware that goes into a machine and then can enhance the output of a particular GPU or run on its own to make the mining or machine learning. There's a whole bunch of applications FPGAs can be used for, but in this case, there are FPGAs and bit streams, which are the software that's part of that make Ethereum mining faster. Plus, they can take advantage of a few flaws, essentially in Etash, something like the FNV hack, where you can do a shortened list search, essentially for the main prime key or primer, I would call it. That bottom line, it makes it faster for somebody to be able to find the solution and submit hashes that give you a much shortened time on solving stuff. So there's software hacks mixed with hardware, mixed with ASICs right now proliferating on the Ethereum network. And what Prog proof of work does is it changes the game by changing the underlying algorithm, which allows GPUs to again reign supreme, and then the ASIC manufacturers and FPGA bitstream guys have to go back and then try to see if there is a fix that they can make looking at the design of prog proof of work, which then takes time. It is people want to put money into hardware, very specific hardware, when something has been designed around taking the full advantage of a normal commercial GPU, which also, by the way, is an ASIC. So it's just a more broadly set of tool sets that can do a lot of different things, not just one thing very well. It does all. It's like kind of a master of all versus or I would say a generalist of all, not a master of anything. Where you can have very specific hardware that's the master of one thing. So prog proof of work here on the 48-minute mark on the ETH dev call essentially came out with a go no go. That was by Hudson Jamison. And he asked the one question I've been waiting for him to ask for the last probably 2-3 months, since actually before even DevCon that was out in Prague, was are you going to take an effort to switch the algorithm out, knowing that there's a proliferation of ASIC hardware, and then you have that issue that's plagued with any ASIC situation where you have a limited distribution supply chain. Only so many people can get in and buy them, while us as consumers can buy ASICs. And as I wouldn't even say an advocate, but a user of ASICs back in 2013 and 2014 in the early Bitcoin days when ASICs first started coming out, you have a very limited amount of people that can get them. Usually you have to pay for it up front. You get it at a later date, and then you get this really bad onboarding experience, because most of the time, if somebody gets ahead of you, you only get this really bad curve of when it's profitable and when it becomes not profitable, and now you get this piece of equipment that's essentially lost most of all of its value. Just look at the S9 values right now. I think I've seen some of them selling for less than $200, where a modern GPU still holds a pretty decent value, and even though it can drop 50% in price, you still actually have other uses for it. So the fact that they're finally making a move to now go forward with prog proof of work is, I think, a good move. Obviously, as a GPU miner, it's a very good move. There was some follow-on with the go no go, where he just asked a question. The immediate, usually traditionally when somebody asks a question such as, should we do this, you usually immediately get, I would say, I don't want to say the naysayers, but usually always have the counterpoint. It's like it's an invitation saying, hey, should we go do this? And you usually get a counterpoint. I was very surprised that Martin stood up in the call and just said right away, like, hey, I'm going to tell you why I think we should go with this, right? It was a positive note leading right after that, and then to the direction of why. And then there was a few points that were brought up in the discussion, explaining the difference of the tactical advantage that the ASICs right now that are on Ethereum have versus other, you automatically assume that ASICs are going to have like a 10x or 20x advantage. In reality, the ASICs performance is really not that much faster than GPUs. But it does have a power performance, and then even in the newer second generation, I would call it ASICs that are coming out for Ethereum, they only have like a 2x, maybe even a 3x at max advantage, because Etash by and large did have a pretty decent approach when it came to the heavy IO that was required. So the speed advantage really isn't what they got hung up on, and I'm glad for that, because I think they get the part of that is lost in translation. I look at it not so much as the speed advantage and the power advantage as it is the supply chain issue. If ASICs, and this is really a message out to the ASIC producers out there, if AMD and NVIDIA came out with a solution that was like a daughter card that came with normal consumer GPUs, and it was centric around the cryptocurrency mining side, to where you create an ecosystem of, one, a huge supply chain that could create the ASIC, a trusted brand name, like if Asus and Zotac and all these things had like maybe a daughter card that went into machines, or you could go more specific mining. You've created an ecosystem to where you have people that will just buy those pieces of hardware. The fact of the matter is that the reason why GPU and the cultist kind of view of GPU mining in general come from is because it's readily available and there's other use cases for it. So I think leaning into something like prog proof of work, allows any ASIC maker that if they're going to make something just as good as a GPU or just around it, that it's about that, making partnerships with larger companies, I think is the long-term play in any kind of proof of work thing. And that's one thing that's kind of lost in these kind of discussions. Everything's posed as a ASIC versus GPU. And I think it all comes down to, as a consumer and somebody that's going to participate in a cryptocurrency mining side of it, to where you are providing a service by putting a card in your machine and applying power to it for a particular cryptocurrency. All we're doing is a service to exchange our services for a token. Nothing more, nothing less. That token happens to be worth money. Sometimes it's worth a lot of money during, very bullish markets, right? If you have an ecosystem of buyers cultivating a society of have an opportunity to have, a secondary market once somebody is, maybe out of mining, or they don't have they don't want to support it anymore. They have that other market that they could sell those components to. And it doesn't take such a hit because you have either that other mining community, or it does another task that it's not just an ASIC. It does some kind of other, physics task or some other kind of pairing with some other ability. I think there's a good future approach to ASICs. I think this is honestly where it's going to go. I'm really looking forward to CES 2019. Shameless plug that we're going out there on Sunday and going to be out there this week. And this is what I'm going to talk with the major manufacturers out there. Samsung, I have meetings with AMD that I'm going to sit down and talk with on engineering side of saying, there's an opportunity for people that are participating and people that already have vested hardware in this space to take advantage of algorithms like this to hold up the networks that we like and love and help, educate and get people to participate in and build software on. That there's opportunities in the space when it comes to that grassroots community that has done investment into GPUs, and look at it from a dual purpose standpoint where we can play games. Like, this is a gaming PC that I'm working on the MultiMinor on, that I'm taking out to CES to be able to test, RTX and maybe the 7 nanometer AMD stuff if they announce and will allow us to touch it. I think there's a huge market. I think that's what got people super excited. Isn't just about, yes, it's nice that you get coin from the activity, but there's a huge entire community that's developed and created and cultivated from this activity of mining. It's been that way since I was in it in 2011 through current. And the reason why I like bringing content to you guys related around what's the performance of everything else, just like the frame rate wars when it comes to games, right? So let's get back to sorry, I like getting into the whole pitch for GPUs, but let's get back into what the discussion essentially was. So effectively, after about the 40 to 50 mark, they came out with a few points that are going to go on. So kind of what's next? Ethereum came out, the dev meeting, and said, okay, this is a direction we're going to go. Prog proof of work's a thing. What goes on right now? On the 15th of January, 15th, 16th, somewhere around there at a certain block number. I don't know the block number off the top of my head, but Ethereum is going to do its Constantinople hard fork. So Constantinople's a go. There's a EIP that explains what's in it. That's going to happen without the prog proof of work. That's moving ahead. Nobody's going to change that. People are already ready and flagging for it. What goes on next is there's a dev meeting in 2 weeks where they're going to do the planning of when the prog proof of work hard fork is going to be. That was the main other part that came out of this, is that the consensus was that they were going to do a prog proof of work hard fork before the next planned hard fork that's out there, which is Istanbul, which is not set for until another 9 months. They're trying to get ahead of that, and there was a notional plan to do it within 2 to 3 months. Now, there was some folks that came back and said 2 to 3 months is a little sketch. There's a lot of planning to do ahead of that. They want to make sure that there's the correct test coverage. I don't remember who was talking, but they had calmed some of those fears to say, our normal test set suite that has to occur usually has to do stuff with the EVM, which is the Ethereum virtual machine. This change doesn't touch that. It's very at the block creation standpoint. The real concern is just when there's new epoch changes, which is when you fire up an Ethereum miner, it goes through these states of the DAG increasing and getting more complex. When it goes through those state transitions, that's their main concern, to make sure that it does. Now, the Prog Proof of Work testnet has been live. Actually, here in a little bit here, I'm going to bring up a screen with the Prog Proof of Work testnet, which you can get to. I'll show you the two URLs. There's a blockchain explorer for the Prog Proof of Work testnet on the Ethereum, and there was kind of a cry for help regarding people to throw some hashes to it, because right now the hash rate's very low. I think it's like as much as a GPU card. I think it's just people using their CPUs right now for the testnet, using like the thin client or the full clients, just doing the mining right out of the client. So I'm going to work on that after this video, and probably have a Twitch stream after it, as we get an option in the MultiMinor for you guys to be able to just download and hit the testnet, which they asked for it. We will bring it to them. So we'll give the opportunity for many people to go out there and flip their rigs on for even like an hour to it, and just give a nice hit to the testnet. It's actually a good test to see volume on the testnet, make sure that everything works and works well. But there is a blockchain explorer out there, and I think that's the next phase. So the testnet's been up for a month. There was 2 fixes that they made on the testnet to Prog Proof of Work. One of them was to stabilize the hash rate. So the mining hash rate on the Prog Proof of Work instance out there was a little variable. They did a patch on that, and then they did a patch to make it a little more complex for ASICs to be able to function. And then I think there's only one pool out there. I'm working Kibbles for, which is on our Discord, to see if we can get a hodl pool set up for the Prog Proof of Work testnet. But if we can't get that, I'll look to the other mining pool makers right now. I'm going to reach out to all of them today, and just see if one of them can set up a pool. You know, just I believe it's Ethermine pool. I don't know. We'll have to look. But bottom line, we're going to see if one of the major pool makers will make a Prog Proof of Work testnet, given this is advantageous for them to do anyways now that this decision's been made. So if it's Supernova, if it's Anatech Pool, whatever, it doesn't matter. I don't care if you're a pool provider out there right now and you're hearing these words. You should probably be starting on this anyways, because you're going to need a transition here at sometime in the future. But the testnet's a pretty needed thing right now, and then we can have miners. I'm going to make sure that we already have the Prog Proof of Work miners set up in the MultiMinor, and I'm going to show that here in a second. And any other changes that we need, we'll have out there. But I'm really making sure I wanted to get out here on the air today and make sure you guys understood that this is coming. 2 weeks from now, they're going to discuss timelines. The next step for the development team is to talk to all the other, so the major clients, from my understanding, are implemented and done. The Go, Rust, and there was one more there was Go, there was Rust, there was one more that I'm missing that are done. They're looking at the Python implementation and a few of the other teams. So they're coming back from this conference today, and they're going to discuss with the rest of the Ethereum development community to say, hey, we're going to make a move here. Does this affect you? Please tell us. And then at the next 2-week dev meeting, they'll go through and discuss, okay, here's what we found. Everybody's good. Or here's this person that needs some help. It sounds very collaborative to get that completed, and then they can set forth when that hard fork is going to occur. What I want to do from the mining community standpoint is make sure, 1, you guys are aware, 2, you guys have a pool somewhere out there, I don't care who does it, that we can point some hash power to on that testnet, and let's hit it and hit it hard to let them see, 1, that you guys are interested in Prog Proof of Work, and that's the mining community supporting it. You don't have to spend a lot of time. This is time and money. I understand, and I don't want people to spend a lot of time doing that. But I would like folks to at least put a little bit of hash power to it. Collectively, enough of us hit that test network, we can show confidence in what's going out there, or we can show any kind of impacts or flaws, especially during another DAG epoch change. But to have success, to make sure that Ethereum keeps, on this direction, we need to show that level of support, and that's what my ploy out to the folks that are actually out there mining a community. Even if you have one GPU and a CPU, or, in your single computer, you can do and attempt that too. So that's all this video really was. Hopefully this has been pretty good information. I'm going to take some questions from the chat. If you guys have any questions, Again, we're going to be doing some live streaming on Twitch. I have a Twitch channel, BitsBeTrippin. I do a lot of just the trial and error stuff. No, direct communication stuff like this. I mean, it's a little bit. I usually get on rants and stuff about technology or something, but most of it's the trial and error, and you guys get to see kind of the proverbial sausage making on mining rigs and building stuff. But I'll be doing that on Twitch to get the testnet set up, and then finish up the MultiMinor for CES, which I'll be doing live streaming from CES. I'm going to both do it to Twitch. Pretty much when I'm walking around, I'm going to be on Twitch just because of the way it's set up and easy. And I know that the codecs work very well when I'm using mobile setup. When I'm on stationary setup, so I'm going to be doing some live streams on YouTube. There's a few collabs that I'll probably end up doing out there. I know I've talked to a few people out there that are larger YouTube channels that we're going to sit down and do some discussion. Last year I met Jensen, the CEO of NVIDIA. Hopefully I can if I get a chance to have him on, I want to have this discussion. Last year they weren't ready to have it as a mining discussion, cryptocurrency mining discussion. By the way, everything was out in January of last year, if anybody recalls, from mining standpoint, that you couldn't find a GPU anywhere on the planet, practically. But I'm going to try to get some exclusive interviews, but with the mining kind of concept and centric at CES on the floor in Vegas. And I think it's going to be pretty cool. So hopefully we can be excited and be out there, and you guys can ask questions. I will field questions from the chat. Let's see if you guys have any questions, and then we'll move on to some of the other stuff here. Let me go through here. 1063 gig cards have stopped mining. Is the DAG too high? I believe the DAG is not over 3 gig. I think you have to do a few tweaks to make it work, though. The DAG is still like 2.6, I think. Does the DAG change with the algo? No, the DAG will stay the same. It inherits the DAG. Yeah, that's a GTX 1070 Ti that's in this machine here. Do AMDs or NVIDIAs do better on prog proof of work? So from what I could tell so far, and I'm working on the AMD side of prog proof of work right now, the NVIDIA takes about a half of a so if a card was doing with all the overclocks and optimized, if it was doing like this 1070 Ti does about 34 with 1000 megahertz memory overclock, so about 35 mega hash on Ethereum right now. On prog proof of work without any clocks, it does about 13. With full clocks and everything, does about 18. So it's about exactly half. It takes about 100%, about half of the performance hit, 50% performance hit. But that's going to be for everybody. Now, I'm going to be doing AMD tonight. I'll be doing that on Twitch. We'll try it with the new RX 590. I have a 590, and then here we'll move over to this close up here. So you guys can see some of the rigs back there in the back. I have RX 480s and I have RX 580 rigs back there. We'll switch that over to when we're doing the Twitch stream. We'll pull that over and test it once the MultiMinor's set up, and we'll test that exact theory for anybody that wants to see that. 8X 2080 Ti Founders Editions. Yeah, that would be a little expensive. The Founders Editions have some issues, or had some issues with some burn up, so I did not want to test any of those. Yes, this is the Zotac Amped Extreme 1070. It's pretty epic. Echo.
Switch to the other camera.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I was echo when I switched to the other. Echo's gone out. Yeah, when I switched to the other camera, it was picking up the GoPro mic. RIP headphone users. So here, I'll give you guys a quick one before I get off here. If you guys don't follow me on Twitch, you're doing it wrong. You should be. You're missing a lot of good content out there. I try to bring some stuff over to you guys on YouTube, but let's move over to this real quick. I'll give you guys a kind of a quick cursory example on on what this looks like here. So if you guys want to see what Prog Proof of Work looks like real quick, here's the new BBT MultiMinor 8. So there's 66 options on there right now. Multiple options for Ravencoin. All the miners have been updated. BitsBeTrippin and Ethereum dual mining. Let's scroll up. And right here, Bitcoin interest right now is set up with Prog Proof of Work. So that's my test. I want to add an entry here for the ETH testnet. That's one of the things I'm going to be working on tonight. So you guys can have an option on the ETH testnet on this. But if I go ahead and run, let's see here, number 21 right here. This is Prog Proof of Work. It starts up. It has to wait for some work. And this is the GTX 1070 with no clock settings. We'll do it with clock and no clock. And I'll let you guys see what this is base out of the box. You guys know what this thing does on Ethereum without it. It takes a second for this to pick up the work. And here it goes. It's connected. There's the 1070 Ti call. And don't worry, it's not 0.2. It's processing the work now. So there we go. It's about 12.35 mega hash on a GTX 1070 Ti without any clocks. And we're letting that run. You guys can see the power usage right now. We'll switch over to that real quick. Let's do a close up here. So full system, this thing was idling about 40, 50. So that's almost 200 watts. Now, Prog Proof of Work does use a lot more power from the basics that I've seen. Let's take a look at, just giving you guys a quick little GPUZ. Let's have this up. I'll give you guys kind of a basic preview of what we're going to be looking at when Ethereum does this. And what we'll do is we'll do a quick overclock on this card too. I figure I'd give you guys a little bit of cool stuff here. So right now the GPU itself is consuming about 180 watts. So the machine's using a little bit because it's actually putting a load on the CPU, I believe. That's part of Prog Proof of Work, does have a little CPU load. Let's look at this. This is an i5, so not too much, about 3% it's holding. So typically you have usually like hardly any CPU activity. There's a little CPU activity right here that's using a little bit of juice, but not a huge amount. You can see still we're using about 170 watts of that there. So, and you know, your G4400, your guys' mining rigs that have Celerons will use a little less juice. So let's get off of this and let's look at the difference between Ethereum right now. So if I just use option 1, which will just do Ethereum on Ethermine. What miner are you using? So on that particular one, the miner that I was using, it says it in there. Let's let Ethereum start running. I'll edit the multi-miner's details here. So it's using the Prog Proof of Work miner. If we look at the miners, it's this one right here, the 0.6 CUDA. It's a compiled Prog Proof of Work miner, 0.6. And then here's this card without any clocks. It's doing 26. Let's go ahead and let's look at the power on that. So without any undervolting or any kind of clock changes, out of the box we're using 140 watts of power. You can see that's just ETH without any clocks done on it. If we pull in Afterburner, right? If we pull an Afterburner, we can see, you know, and there's no setting stuff here. Let's go ahead and drop this down to about 70%. Let's uncheck that. Let's pull the temp back up. We won't hit 92, but that's okay. And let's go ahead and slap this this memory clock over. Let's give her the beans. We'll keep the core clock down because Ethereum doesn't need it. Let's apply that. Now what's that switch to? Look at that power consumption. Drop down to 129 watts. No more 140. We're down to 170 for the system, and we are at 33.4, and we're climbing. This will probably be, let's do, and it just dropped. It probably froze up on me because I changed it when it was actually mining here. Not usually recommended. We'll give it a quick reboot. I think it's gonna fail the miner. So you usually want to do that like outside of the miner. I was being a little overzealous there and switching it on the miner. We'll let that reboot. So the stable setting for the Zotac Amped Extreme, some of them will hold. I did have a rack of those, and I had a few that would hold about 800, and then they didn't really like the 1,000 watt upgrade on the memory. But you go to about 34 mega hash right now. With the same settings on Prog Proof of Work, it goes to about 18, and it's going to use more power. Wow, he just punched that GPU in the face. 1,000 watt overclock. But we're going to let that come back up here. Yeah, and that's doing it on Bitcoin interest right now because that's a functional mainnet. Here, let's go back here. So yeah, you can see the machine right now. It's sitting down there and boot up. It uses almost 100 watts. This is an older i5. It's a 4th gen i5. So it's not the most power efficient thing. When it sits there and idles, it looks like about 50. When the CPU is doing some work, it's doing about 100 watts, which is pretty high actually. We'll let this come up here. We'll do a close. You guys can see my Steam login, so you guys can try to meta hack me here. Let's do Afterburner. I haven't done any live GPU testing in quite a while on YouTube. I usually do, this is the kind of stuff I do on Twitch most of the time now, mainly because the Twitch streams will go pretty far, pretty long. Let's go to about 850. Here, let's just type it in there. 850 megahertz overclock on that memory. Let's hit enter on that. Let's apply that. Let's take this down to 70. Let's enter on that. Let's swing this guy back up. Let's apply. Let's go ahead and run the MultiMinor. Again, this MultiMinor is going to be available. 7.0 is out there. If you look up BBT MultiMinor, it is available. This is version 8.0. My goal is to have this out tonight after I do the AMD updates to it. It has all the latest miners, including Prog Proof of Work. And then let's do, not 21. Let's go back to ETH real quick and just validate that it's running on ETH. Goes a Turbo Shane says aggressive on that memory clock. And GPUs are very cheap right now. Now again, this is going to take Ethereum at least 2 to 3 months to get Prog Proof of Work implemented, but we're ahead of the game here of just making sure that you guys know that's coming out. So 33 mega hash right now on this GPU, and we can see 178 watts total system. We know 40 to 60 of that's the machine itself. So you're looking at about 129 watts, 128 watts on that card, running an overclock with a pretty heavy overclock on the actual memory at 850, and that's relatively stable. If I let this run on Windows for here, that's the settings that I'd be using in Linux on this card. So let's take a quick look. Let's close this out and let's see how Prog Proof of Work looks. And you guys see that the power right up there in the upper right hand corner. So you see the machine idling. It was at about 170. Let's look at Prog Proof of Work out of the box. Same memory settings. And let's do, that's number 20. Let's do 21. Let's keep it on CUDA 10. And then here's it working. You'll notice when it kicks in is when that power jumps way up. Right now it's at 50 watts and just holding. Again, I'm super personally stoked that they're making this decision, because I think it's gonna get that enthusiast community back into it. Now, price does have to come partially back with Ethereum, because it is just a math problem when it comes to the difficulty. But the one part that I haven't talked about that much is the fact that if you fork off known FPGAs and ASICs, then you've created an environment where, like Monero showed everybody, when they forked, there was a 10 plus X issue with Kryptonite. But you created this situation where you had most of the ASIC community, or a large majority, when they got forked off, it more than halved the actual amount of hash rate on the network, which thereby grossly decreased the difficulty, the mining difficulty, which means if you're a miner, you're getting less you're getting more currency for your available hash power. So if you're getting more currency for your available hash power and the price stays the same, you're still getting that increase, because instead of earning 0.6 ETH, now a rig is going to earn 1.1 to 1.2 ETH a month. Well, if Ethereum sets at $150, now you're earning $90. You're paying maybe $35 to $40 in power a month for that one particular rig. So it becomes not just profitable, but a lot more profitable than what it is right now, where it's barely profitable for people unless you have good power cost. So we didn't see a huge increase there. I think some of that's due to the power starvation that I'm causing here. Let's take it back up to 100 and see how that power depiction works. Let's feed it. We gave it more juice. Now, the more juice, automatically you can see had a pretty significant increase on the power consumption there. Now we're up to 14. It is power hungry. We got to 14.7. 14.6, but look at that power usage jumping up to 230 watts from 170. So it's not going to be a matter of how fast a card is with Prog Proof of Work. It's a matter of how much power are you feeding it, and do you get that big competitive advantage of getting 2 more mega hash on that much more power. I'm pretty sure Prog Proof of Work will blow my PSUs. Well, so that if you saw the difference between running this particular card right now at 850, which is what you would do on a normal NVIDIA card, and then running it at 100, running at 100 power limit does increase the power pretty significantly. That's about a 40 to, well, that's more than 40. That's 60 to 70 watts on that single card more. Taking it to 70%, dropped it down, back down. So let's do that. Look in the bottom right. This is the bottom, or right, the upper right-hand side of the screen right now. That 239. Let's watch when we apply that. Watch the power difference. See that power drop? Here, I'll make it full screen for the people that are not full screen or on a phone. Let's go to a close-up of this. Let me see if I can navigate over to there. So 100. And let's apply that. Look at the power difference. 238 watts when it's running. And that goes up to 14.8 mega hash versus 12 mega hash on a 1080 Ti. Versus, let's take it all the way down to 60. Let's see how big of a hit it takes it. Let's do 65. 65% was still palatable here. I dropped it to 70, 60. We're down in the 160s. That's about 120 watts. About 125 watts on the card itself. The rest of it's on the system, about 40 to 50 watts on the system. Now let's see what that did to us when it comes to... Hey, not me. How about the computer? There we go. And now we dropped it to 10. So you can see the difference between 65 power limit to, let's do up to 70. 70 is kind of the sweet spot for the 1070 Ti. Let's apply that. Still holding 10.7. Let's see if it can jump up to 12. There's 11. And you, that's not the right computer one because we're missing the, yeah, that one. So we went up about 10 watts, but we got 2 mega hash. Now that's a good trade-off because you're getting a full 2 mega hash, a full 2 million hashes per second for about 10 watts. But there's a significant change when you go to 100. Now the other question is, if we overpower, does it take advantage of it? Because we know that it was 14. Let's take it to 110. Let's see. Now that's going to make the power. Look at that. Power is 250, 260. It was 234 before. So it's another 30 watts. Let's see what the mega hash goes up to. Low power costs will still rule today. You're absolutely correct on that, Smiley. So not much. We're still at about 14.84. I think that's about as high as we've seen before. 14.86. We're not even breaking 15 with an overpower. Let's take it a little higher. Let's take it to 120. Now we're up to 280 watts coming out of this system. Let's see if that bumps it any further. It looks like it's not right now, but let's see if it can bust 15 if it gets more juice. Oh, yep, it's still juice-centric. There it is, 14.97, 14.95. We're almost popping it. 15, we broke 15. This, I think, is going to top out the TDP on it. Now we're over 300 watts. We'll let that churn for a second. We're popping 300 watts now. That's about the TDP of the card. It's 250 watts going to the card right now. And about 50 of that's going to the CPU, GPU. And yeah, it looks like we're holding 15 consistently, but it's at a very high power cost. Full TDP of the card. And it's doing 300 watts. So that's 250 for the card, 50 for the board and processor. I believe the full TDP on a 1070 Ti was 250. So there's not much more we're going to be able to take it there. Card still holds 70 Celsius, which is pretty impressive. Now the only other question here is, does it take advantage of any kind of clocks on the clock itself? Let's take a small clock on it. Let's do 50 on that and increase the core clock. We're already boosted, and this is the amped extreme, so it is pretty boosted already. So 50 on top of this is like almost 250 on a standard. Or no, the core clocks on these ones on the 1070 Ti's are actually all the same. Never mind. I'm thinking of the 1070s. So the amped extreme has some pretty nice hardware. A little adjustment, but not much. Not for what we got there. So we're holding about 15. So you're looking at it, the max on this one is about 15 on this particular card. I don't think we can go much higher on the memory without causing an issue. Let's go ahead and feed it. Let's give it the beans and see if it can stay stable. There it is, 1,000. Does it have an effect? Does it stay stable? Good question. That sequence, this next post should be it. I'm hearing a little bit of the coil whine now on the card. 15.5, and we just blew the driver. There goes the driver. Okay, so 15.5 and then artifacts and complete disarray. We may have lost the machine. Let's come back up. Yep, it's down. We lost the driver. Let's give it a reboot and see if we didn't destroy it. Should be good. Card was PO'd. So that 1,000 with the overclock on the memory. I mean, we were really giving it everything it got. This card just seems to be stable at about 850. Probably could get to about 925, but in reality, are you going to run it like that? Probably not. 850, yes, but I think that's it. But that gives you guys kind of a basic overview in 45 minutes on what's coming For anybody that missed the first part of this, I do talk about the schedule of what Ethereum announced today, and then what their next steps are. And hopefully this stuff was good. I'm going to have a lot more of what you guys just seen right now. If you found that entertaining or informational, or just wanted to watch me possibly break graphics cards and stuff, you are more than welcome to join the live streams that are on Twitch, because I do a lot longer versions of this on Twitch, where we'll try that with a bunch of different cards. And on Sunday I fly out to CES, and I'm going to be doing that on the floor. So I'm actually taking the MultiMinor, which you just saw, I'm taking that with me on the Vegas floor at CES, and I'm going to talk to the various vendors, Gigabyte, Asus. I'm going to go live on Twitch. I will do some YouTube live streams also, and I'm going to be, if they'll let me, I'm going to ask. I'm not going to do it kind of, without their permission. But I've already gotten some commitments from a few of them. MSI is one of the best companies out there. They're like, yeah, bro, come bring your stuff. We'll try it out. I mean, it's a closed environment as far as they're concerned. They don't care. We're going to put that in there. We're going to test out some of the RTX stuff that they have. So the RTX 2080s, 2080 Ti's, 2060s, 2070s. And then if we can get access to the AMD 7 nanometer lineup, there's supposed to be some announcements out there at CES. This is the type of event that they announce that kind of stuff at. We will be there armed with our USB stick, and we'll be trying out some of this stuff live for you guys out there at CES. So if you like that kind of stuff, I plan bringing that for you guys. And it's not going to be just me. There's a few other BBT, the crew that's going to be out there helping me to make sure that we got the cameras and everything feed. It's not going to be a one-man show, which is good for me because there's a lot of ground to cover. So I'll be going live across the board for that. So if you guys are not following, hit that follow, hit that subscribe button here on YouTube, and you will get notified. Hit the bell. It'll notify you when I go live. And if you have the time to kind of poke in there and see, you'll get to see some cool stuff, hopefully live, maybe ask some questions. Last year I had a lot of cool access to a lot of cool engineers, developers, and I try to take that conversation very technical with them from a developer and engineering standpoint to see where things are going, and then let them nerd out with MultiMinor. So I think you guys will be hopefully excited to see that, and like, subscribe, share, follow us on Twitter, and catch us on the Twitch stream in a little bit. So thanks, guys. We're going to sign off. Peace. Maybe peace. I got to get the mouse.